He's back into it in Chester. Here's El Senior. Yes! Yes!
The center back, Jacob Glesnes, is going for it.
Oh my God! What a goal! And that will do it! One of the best comebacks in recent years. 3 unanswered by the Union. And they go into the Gold Cup break, winning it 3.
Hello, welcome to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd. What a night, what a night, what a night the Philadelphia Union had against Toronto FC in a game that was arguably the biggest game in regular season history. And don't worry, we'll get into that debate, I feel like, here in a little bit. Whether or not it was, we'll discuss that. But, you know, the Union, as soon as they scored that first goal, they did not look back at all. And joining me today to discuss the latest news in MLS and last night's victory for the Union against Toronto FC, I'm joined by a guy who's won pretty much every single giveaway, it seems like, on Twitter. So I'd like to welcome back onto the podcast, Mr. Mike Thomas. How are you doing, Mike?
Hey, Todd. Thanks for having me. And I actually was wearing the jersey that I won from your show last night. So maybe it was good luck, I guess.
Maybe it was. Maybe it wasn't. Spoiler alert, for all you people listening, get looking on Twitter, Instagram, wherever, because there is going to be another giveaway. And I don't know, Mike, I mean, maybe you'll come away with something else again. So
I'll retweet it, but I feel like I can't be too greedy. So maybe I'll have to opt out of the drawing.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure people appreciate that because your luck. It feels like every time people give away stuff, I feel like I see your name. So, but yeah, it's great to have you back on the show this time. Obviously, not doing the quiz trivia podcast and not giving an introduction how you became a fan of the team. Actually, to break down the Philadelphia Union, I think we tried to schedule something maybe a month or so ago to try to get you into the show and just didn't work out. But, you know, now we got you into the podcast for arguably, like I said, the biggest win for the Union in regular season history. But before we talk about that game and everything else, let's just go straight into the news around MLS. So starting off, got to start off with non-Union news. Over the week, it was announced by the Columbus Crew that they have signed Captain Jonathan Mensah to a multi-year contract extension. Jonathan Mensah, who was named the captain of the Columbus Crew ahead of the 2020 season. This year, Mensah, he's made so far 19 regular season appearances. All of them have been starts. He's played in every single minute of every single season match this year for the Crew. Mensah, he has completed 1,022 passes in the regular season action in 2022. That is more than any other player in MLS. He also leads the league in block shots with 21. He has 89 clearances, which also leads MLS, and he's tied for second most headed clearances with 48. I mean, he's been a solid defender for Columbus Crew all season, and it feels like the last 3 years. I know when he got to Columbus 4 years ago, he had pretty much rocky start and everything, but after he got the jitters out of his system the last 3 years, he's been a top-notch defender for Columbus Crew, and not only that, just in MLS. And I know we'll go ahead and talk about Mark McKenzie, because Mark McKenzie and Brenden Aaronson have both been named in the MLS under 22. So looking forward to talking about that. But yeah, I mean, this is a well-deserved honor, a contract extension for Jonathan Mensah, and I have no problem saying that he's one of the top defenders in MLS, and he's definitely up there for a defender of the year, I would feel like. What about you, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously been an anchor for the Crew, and I mean, the Crew are no pushovers by any stretch of the imagination. They've been a great team for a few years now. So, I mean, seems like a no-brainer decision from a Columbus standpoint for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And anytime you can tie down your captain, and especially, I mean, in international, Jonathan Mensah is from Ghana, and I think he's been capped like 54, 55 times for Ghana, still getting call-ups for them. And, you know, a lot of times in MLS, I feel like teams that are playing that much for the national team, we don't normally see those type of players in MLS. And so for him to still be here in MLS, to sign a contract extension, that just tells you that he's happy in MLS. Ghana doesn't think that his form's dropped just because he plays in MLS. You hear from the Euro snobs all the time, oh, that player plays in MLS, they're not good and everything. Well, here's Ghana saying, yeah, he's still good enough for our national team. We're still going to call him up. So great business for the Columbus Crew. But going on to what I just mentioned a couple seconds ago, Brenden Aaronson and Mark McKenzie have both been named in the MLS 22 under 22 list, with Brenden Aaronson being voted as number 1 and Mark McKenzie coming in at number 3. And so, like I said, we've heard Jim Curtin say that for him, Mark McKenzie's the best defender in MLS, and like I said, you can make a case for the Columbus Crew's Jonathan Mensah. Either one of them, I'll hear both sides of the tale for. But we recently saw that Brenden Aaronson's been sold to RB Salzburg for $6 million with incentives for $9 million. So with how well Mark McKenzie's been playing this year, Mike, how much do you think Mark McKenzie could potentially go for?
I mean, my expectations, the Aaronson sale, that totally changed my baseline, I guess, for what the Union may be looking for out of something with this. So, man, I don't know. I feel like, Aaronson obviously plays the flashier position that maybe commands a bit more money. McKenzie, a little bit more of a finished product, where Aaronson, you're betting a little bit more on potential. Man, Aaronson just exceeded so many of my expectations. I was hedging my bets pretty low compared to a lot of people on the fan base.
You got to.
But like recalibrating after that sale, I don't know, $4 million for McKenzie. It seems like a reasonable ballpark at this point. And he's hotter than ever right now too, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, he's scoring goals, 2 goals in his last 4 games, something like that. I mean, last year, Mark McKenzie was away with the national team, the under-20s, missed time with injuries and everything, so we didn't get to see Mark McKenzie as much as Jim probably would have liked, us as fans would have liked to have seen, but as soon as Mark McKenzie came back from those injuries from the national team, him and Jack Elliott just formed such a dynamic partnership in the back and kind of pushed Austin Trusty out of the way, and then you just see Mark McKenzie take his game to another level this year. I mean, he's so confident on the ball. The thing I love about him is he's confident on his left foot. He's confident on his right foot. He's not afraid when people are pressuring him when he has the ball and everything. This guy's just so cool, calm, collected. And you see so many defenders, when people are coming at them, they'll just kick the ball out of bounds, but no, not Mark. He'll take a couple touches and everything and split the defense, try to start something going forward in the counterattack. And, man, you'd love to see it. And he's 21 years old. Like you said, maybe a little bit more of a finished product than Brenden Aaronson, but still, I agree with you. When you look and see Brenden Aaronson go for $6 million, nobody saw that coming. And if people say, yeah, I knew Brenden was going for that much, yeah, you're a liar. Just with Mark McKenzie, yeah, I agree. $4 to $4.5 million I can see for Mark McKenzie. You add incentives like Brenden Aaronson, great. You add that selling clause, that's even better. Because myself, I did not expect the Union to get the incentives plus the selling clause for Brenden Aaronson for $6 million. So I feel like if that's what Ernst did, he's going to do the same thing for Mark McKenzie.
Yeah, and I know the Celtic rumors are swirling around out there, but I think he's well beyond the point where his price tag is going to be more than what Celtic's willing to purchase him at, right? So, Celtic's a big, massive club, globally and in Scotland, of course, but they don't necessarily splash that big cash. It feels to me like if they do get that, around that $4 million number, with his level of play, especially, he would absolutely tear up Scotland. You already said it, his passing out of the back, it's just with such intent and precision. I could see him going, again, obviously Ernst has connections in Germany. I could see him going to a Bundesliga club, or I know Kincaid tossed out the idea of an Italian team. I would love to see him in either of those leagues, or even maybe a stepping stone league like Belgium, or if you could find a team that's willing to purchase with the intent to sell on later. I mean, it seems like there's a lot of different options he could go and have a lot of success on.
Yeah, and the thing that I thought was so telling in that interview and the press conferences with Brenden, with Jim and Ernst Tanner, they said, not only was RB Salzburg giving us the money we wanted, but it's also a good fit for Brenden. They believe in developing young players. Our mindset wasn't selling Brenden just so his development would stop. We want him to continue to develop, but not only that, we want to get money. And Jim's like, yeah, we probably could have got a lot more money from ex club for Brenden Aaronson, but we felt that, they believe in Brenden Aaronson. They're going to do what's best for his development. And I feel like they're going to have that same mindset for Mark McKenzie. And so, yeah, you're right. Maybe a team like Anderlecht over in Belgium, I know that was tossed around for a rumor from Mark McKenzie that they believe in young players. Maybe it could be a team like Anderlecht in Belgium. Maybe it could be a smaller team, like you said, another stepping stone where it doesn't have to be one of these big European clubs where Mark McKenzie's not going to get a ton of playing time like Matt Mizaga did when he left the Red Bulls to go to Chelsea and has not had anything to play for at Chelsea. He's always getting loaned out and everything. So I think, that's a great mindset for the club to have. Yeah, we want to get money, but we want to see these guys develop in Europe. We don't want to sell them just to sell them. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. My big thing lately has been trying to figure out which teams are willing to pay for young talent and try to sell them on some like trolling transfer market, looking at recent purchases and then how they end up flipping players on, maybe even like similar to like a Reggie Cannon path to Portugal, right? With some sort of, just the next step on the way. But I can't imagine he's going to be long for the Union, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely. But the good thing is, we have Jacob Glesnes, who's been outstanding this season. Jack Elliott continues to impress. So I've got to imagine if Mark McKenzie does move on in January, that Ernst Tanner has already looked at a couple center back targets for this team, and we'll see if they call anybody up from the second team and everything. But yeah, I gotta imagine that Ernst has a couple targets because, like you said, the day is not going to be long until Mark McKenzie is no longer a Union player. But let's go on to the last topic of the show before we talk about Philadelphia Union versus Toronto FC. So this is something that I talked about last episode, which was the SSF canceled the Supporter Shield, and it should come to no surprise that they decided to bring it back, the Shield, this year for people. I know I said on the podcast that, they've done enough damage on my books. I said that on Twitter. I was like, I'm just done with this and everything. And, I was like, if there wasn't pressure from fans, from coaches, players, media, they would have reversed the decision. And I did say, like I said, I said that on Twitter. I said that on the podcast. I said MLS should just cut all ties with SSF and create their own trophy. But, Mike, he isn't afraid to voice his opinion on topics that might not agree with everybody. So, Mike, how are you feeling about the Shield coming back with all the drama? Was it the right decision to bring it back after they said no?
Oh, yeah. I mean, absolutely the correct decision to bring it back and go back on their initial inclination to cancel it. And like, to me, I was maybe one of the louder people on Twitter, like freaking out about them canceling the Shield because I've always been like a really strong defender of the Shield, and that it although it's not the perfect trophy for a lot of reasons, the imbalance every year, that whole imbalance question has been a question around the Shield since its inception, really. Yeah. But I always view it as a major trophy and a big deal. So when they canceled it, I took issue with that. And I'm glad that the pressure brought on from fans and the players and the coaches caused them to, take a second look at it. I think if the league were to take it over, which was honestly maybe a path we were going down had they not doubled back on the decision, I think that would have been a net loss. I think there is something unique and cool and very special about the Supporter Shield with it being controlled by the supporters and not the league, right? There's a lot of value there and there's a lot of uniqueness, and it's a very great trophy. Now that leaves it open to a potential flaw like we saw, but they did end up ultimately making the right decision, correcting it fairly quickly once they saw all the outrage. I think there's questions about how some of the supporter groups ended up voting, right? It's maybe closer than it should have been. But I mean, to keep the point is they ultimately came to the right decision. They lost their way for a minute, and now they're, correcting it, and hopefully they learn from this moving forward, maybe put some more guardrails up to prevent an issue like this in the future. And, let's move on, learn from the past, and not, keep hammering on the mistake that was made, right? It's been corrected. Let's move on. Let's win this thing and let's celebrate it when it gets awarded. The trophy's, worth the same amount now than it was, 3 weeks ago, prior to them canceling it and then uncanceling it, right? So, if it meant something to you 3 weeks ago, it should mean something to you this week too. The Shield's a big deal. It matters. They almost messed up, but in the end they didn't, right? So let's drop the berating of the SFF and, the Supporters Council and, the people that misstepped and, let's move on and just win the thing. And it still matters.
Yeah, definitely. And I definitely will give my thoughts on it a little bit. But one thing I am curious about, so like doing my research, finding out about the SSF and the ISC, I had no clue that these two organizations existed. So I'm going to assume you probably did prior, because reading on Twitter, a lot of other people felt the same way. They're like, I never knew this was a thing.
So I knew it was a thing, but it does always feel a little Illuminati-esque to me.
Definitely.
Like, they're out there, but what they're actually doing, it always feels very like closed doors and a little boys clubbish. Not that it's all guys, but you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, definitely.
I feel like the general supporter population is very much in the dark with a lot of discussions and decisions that are being had, especially at that like higher level. But like, you even at the local Sons of Ben level, unless you really insert yourself in the conversation, it's easy to get lost in the dark and, not realize these things are happening. So maybe on the whole, communicating out to the masses a little better in the future going forward would be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I never replied to you and everything. My intentions were to reply back to you on Twitter, but I was like, I knew you were at the game, so I wanted to get you on for that. But not only that, I knew that you were very, very vocal about the whole Supporters Shield, the SSF situation. So I was like, we can discuss this here and everything. And one thing that you said that does stick out is you said there's a way to hold people accountable without discarding them forever. And that's a really good point. I think a good step going forward, because there's rumors that 5 people made this decision to cancel the Supporters Shield for the 2020 season. You can start with, holding those guys accountable. Maybe they should step down. Maybe the president of the SSF should step down. I think Tim Horton, for the New York Red Bulls, I think he's the president, right? Or he's somebody that's high up there. I mean, you hear chatter about that on Twitter and everything. So like you said, you don't know too much about this unless you're driven into this community and everything. You're paying attention, and communication out to the masses could be a little bit better and everything. But yeah, it just it is a good point. Yeah, we could be upset and everything, but ultimately they did fix the situation. I get it. The Shield, even if there was no Shield this year, MLS was still going to give that Champions League berth. They were still going to have home field advantage in the playoffs and everything. And I get why people want the Shield, because in 96, MLS dropped the ball. They should have awarded teams that finished first place something. They didn't do it, so that's why the Shield got created in 99. And I get it. There's a lot of people that like soccer because they started watching in Europe and everything. And everybody knows, the team that finishes with the best record wins the league. And so I get it. Like the Shield from that sense, it kind of has that European meaning because, look, yeah, we finished with the best record. But, us being American, we got to do playoffs. Every sport in America has playoffs. And so that's why so many times you see the teams that win the Shield, they get, quote unquote, upset in the playoffs. Hopefully that doesn't happen to the Union. I'm not speaking into an existence, but we've seen it more times than not. So I get it from people that are fans of European soccer. They're like, yeah, we like the team with the best record should be awarded with something. And yeah, I get that. It's been around for a while. And even in 99, when they created the Shield, they still went back to the previous years and rewarded the teams that finished with the best record, even though in 96, 97, and 98, the Shield wasn't a thing. So credit to SSF for awarding those teams prior, even though this wasn't a thing. And then you got the people that, like myself, I said on this podcast, I said on Twitter, I said on another podcast, I was like, I'd much rather win MLS Cup than the Supporters Shield. You put that a star on your jersey and everything. I feel like it means something, where if you win the Shield, you only have it in your cabinet for 1 year and then it gets taken away. But I guess in the record books, you're still listed on there for winning the Supporters Shield, but I'd much rather still see the star on a jersey than a shield, something that we're just going to have a hold of for 1 year. But at the same time, it is still adding hardware. So I do get the frustration from people, but you're right. You can't be mad at these people forever.
So, yeah, and the shield, right, you may not get to keep it in your trophy cabinet for all time, but, I mean, you get a banner for sure, or something painted on the wall like Kansas City does, right? So, I mean, it still goes down in the record books. And obviously, the schedule is always unbalanced, and there's weird rules with MLS. So the shield always needs to be looked at within the context of each individual season. But, it's still a major trophy, and it may not be the championship. The championship's MLS Cup, and that's priority, right? Because that's how we do things here. But yeah, the shield does still matter. And I do think it's special that the supporters control it. I always say all the time, sometimes our own worst enemy in American soccer is the supporters, right? So for all the amazing, great things supporters do, we also do a lot of cringy type things as well, and tend to think of ourselves as maybe a little more important than we actually are, in my humble opinion.
Yeah.
So, it's a big push-pull. Like that, of course they matter, but then there's a lot of different philosophies around how you should go about supporting. And the real answer is, there's no right or wrong way to do things, but there's a lot of different ideas on how to do it, right? So, which I guess is, what we're doomed to as if we're American soccer fans. But, it also keeps things interesting, that's for sure.
It definitely does. And spoiler alert, my blunder of the week near the end of the episode does have something to do with the support of a team very, very dear to our hearts. So I'll get to that story a little bit later on. But yeah, that's pretty much, I don't want to talk about this trophy anymore. So Mike's right. This is an opportunity for people to grow and learn from their mistakes. And hopefully, whether that's guidelines going forward in case something like this ever happens again, that they have something to fall back on, not, just 5 people voting on this. Nope, no trophy because our team wasn't in contention for the playoffs, or for the trophy, I should say. But let's go ahead and talk about the Philadelphia Union versus Toronto FC. So we all know, Mike, you were at the game, I was at the game, everybody listening were probably watching the game, whether in person or on TV. But before we talk about the specifics on last night's game, would you say that this was the best game in the Union's regular season history? I mean, you've been a supporter since day one for the Union. You've seen a lot of terrible, terrible games. You've seen a lot of good games. A couple games that stick out in my mind is the 6-2 Union victory against Toronto in 2011. You have the 4-0 victory for the Union against New England in 2016. You have the 6-1 victory against Orlando in 2016. The 3-2 comeback victory against the Pink Cows last year. The 6-1 victory against New England last year. The 5-1 victory against DC down in DC last year. So where would you rank this game, Philadelphia Union versus Toronto FC, the 5-0 win for the Union?
Yeah, and I was at quite a few of those games, including the 6-2 in Toronto back in 2011. I mean, in terms of everything around this game with first place on the line, and just in terms of just the pure talent and like the cohesion on the field, I don't think I've ever seen the team look that sharp. In terms of like greatest performance, it's hard to argue against last night. It really is. And the clean sheet on top of it all. The defense, Blake had some great saves. I don't think there was a single player on the field that didn't have their A game last night. And it truly was the first team, I guess you could argue, between Glesnes and Elliott. But I mean, I feel like so often we hear press conferences from Jim Curtin. It's like, I don't even think this is our best game. I think we have more in us. I think last night was the fully realized potential of what the Union could be. Now, I don't know how easy that is to replicate the next 3 games to close out the season, but I feel like this was we're always waiting. There's more there. There's more there. We're winning, but we can do even better. I feel like this was the final form
Yeah, definitely.
of this last night. It was just impressive across the board from everyone. I don't think anyone had a bad game last night.
No, not a single player. And Jim's sub choices didn't need to dictate the game. He just got people off, which fans have been killing Jim for. You need to take Ali off. You're running him to the ground. Jameer Montero, you need to get him off and everything. Well, he misses the game against Chicago because too many yellow cards. Super happy that he played last night, had himself a hell of a game. And, I mean, you just can't complain. And like you said, and Jim Curtin says, I don't think that this game was complete. Well, he finally made it last night in his press conference. This was our most complete game of the season. And the crazy thing is, too, we won 5-0, but we had 27 shots. That's one off from tying the record, which is 28. We did that twice against New England and Vancouver. We had 87 passes completed, 11 corner kicks, kept the pressure all in Toronto's half in the first half. I mean, we kept them to one shot, I believe it was, in the first half. They had 3 shots all night. It doesn't get more dominating than that. Pozuelo, I had to do a double take. I was like, I don't see this guy on the field. Did he get substituted earlier than I thought he was? No, just Jose Martinez did an absolutely amazing job taking him out of the game. And I guess, Jim did say in his press conference that this was pretty much the lineup minus Piatti that we thought that Toronto was going to throw out at us with injuries and whatnot. And I know it sucks missing injuries, but everybody's saying, Toronto's this great team. The depth's unbelievable. And that depth that people say is so good for Toronto did not show up at all in that game. I mean, it just seemed like they did not want to be out there on the field at all last night. And I mean, being a fan since 2017, even though I mentioned games prior to 2017, I mean, this game's definitely got to be up there for the best regular season game in Union history. Sergio Santos scores a hat trick for the first time since 2018. CJ Sapong against New York Red Bulls, I believe it was. I love CJ Sapong pointing to the badge when he scored his first goal in his press conference, pointing to the badge. And I said on Twitter that this has to be Sergio Santos just eliminating the rumors of him going to Colo Colo. I mean, he's had to have seen that, because why else would he be pointing to the badge? Because I said on Twitter, not many players, it doesn't matter around the world, you don't see many players pointing to the badge. So Sergio Santos, he's had to have seen those rumors, I feel like.
I'm sure Sergio's plugged into it, but I mean, wow, you couldn't ask for any more out of him last night. Kai Wagner, I feel like, is finally back to what we were expecting out of him after his season last year. I mean, he was just hitting balls just so precise last night. It was unbelievable. It had a little bit of everything. It had the McKenzie homegrown goal. It had Aaronson, with the assist and the dummy, and the Montero seems to be performing at the level we were hoping him to after, a lot of the season at the start. Maybe he wasn't meeting the expectations we want these last few weeks. He's back to why we bought him at that high price. Ray Gaddis playing incredible defense last night. It's just everything you already mentioned, Baruja. Just everything you could ever want happened last night. It was a blast.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to your point about Kai Wagner, I mean, you're right. His service was excellent. Probably should have had 3 assists on the night. Casper was just inches off from meeting Kai Wagner's cross in the first half. I was hoping Casper would have got that, but I mean, you're like, okay, well, it's one miss, but not Kai. Just every time he was getting all the space in the world, it seemed like on the left side of the field, he was just sending in great delivery. And, I talked about this 2 episodes ago where somebody started a rumor on Twitter, said Kai won't be back next season. They said they know this because they're neighbors with Kai. But, even if that is true, there's no denying, in my opinion, that Kai Wagner is just way too good for this league, in my opinion. There's a guy who came through the Schalke Academy, didn't have what it takes, so Ernst Tanner gives him a chance to rediscover his game, just like I feel like he's doing with Jameer Montero. If Jameer can continue up with his performances, Jameer, I think, would be 28, 29 by the time his contract's up, and that's still plenty young enough, I feel, to kick it again in Europe. Maybe not at a top club, but definitely in a top league, a mid-table team in one of those leagues. And so, Yeah, I mean, it sucks because we haven't had a good left back in forever. I mean, it beats playing Ray Gaddis on the left side of the field and everything where he'll do the job, but, he's not going to give you much offensively. It beats Mbaizo, who refuses to use his left foot out there. I feel like Jordan Harvey was the last left back that the Union had that was good. I know Matt Real is coming into his own, so that's why if Kai Wagner is sold, if he is gone after the season, I feel confident with Matt Real. He's got better than he was last year. But yeah, it is going to suck if Kai Wagner leaves because his service, the space he was getting was unbelievable last night for the Union. And I was thinking, just with seeing how good his delivery is, do you ever wonder why they don't let Kai take corners with how good his balls are into the box?
Yeah, I mean, now granted, Montero did have some good service from the corner last night, but I mean, our corner success never has been all that great. So, yeah, you would think Kai would maybe take it once in a while, but I don't know. I don't have a good answer for you.
No, me either. So I mean, we're continuing to put Montero out there. Occasionally, I think Brenden Aaronson's been on there, but we all know it's mostly been Jamiro Montero, and we've never been a good set piece team, like you said. So yeah, we had Harris, who's always put good deliveries in the box, but it just seems like in the past nobody's been able to get on top of those. I mean, there's just you couldn't have asked for a better night. I mean, I can't imagine what that place would have been like if there was 18,500 fans in the stadium, even with a little bit over 2,000 fans. That place was rocking, and man, I loved sitting in 136 last night. My first time. I feel like now I've sat everywhere in the River End, and I think starting at the 70th minute, I don't know if you guys could hear it over at, you guys probably could have at 138, just all the Westberg chants and everything, giving it to him. And I was like, we're happy. We're up 5-0. What else do we have to do? Let's just give it to Westberg. And so I know Westberg heard it all night, and this guy's like, yeah, get me out of Chester. I don't want to be here longer than I have to.
Oh, yeah. Nothing more fun than piling on someone that's having a bad day.
Absolutely. And I mean, he did make a couple good saves for Toronto, and I was hoping, it's like, man, you've already given up 5 goals. Let Corey Burke get a goal. Someone give a penalty up in the box. Let's see if Ray Gaddis comes up, takes a penalty. Let's see if Jim Curtin's a man of his word, because I think in a press conference he said if we're up 5-6-0, yeah, sure, I'll let Ray Gaddis take a penalty. He's pretty good at penalties. Now, granted, who knows how good Ray is, but it doesn't hurt if we're up that many goals. And yeah, I mean, we didn't get the penalty, and Ray had a couple shots too, and you're like, oh my goodness, like this is so close. Like he was definitely feeling himself, and Ray, he wants that goal so bad, especially when he's seeing all his other teammates scoring goals, and he's yet to get one.
Oh, for sure. There were a few close calls, but and actually, I will say, even though we were giving Westberg some flack, I mean, all of those goals were such like class and precision. It's I don't know how much more he really could have done to prevent those. The strikers and everyone that scored last night were just so on point. And those goals, I don't even know if I necessarily blame Westberg for them. Maybe the TFC defense, but
yeah, definitely the defense.
Yeah,
definitely the Omar Gonzalez. I mean, any fans for the national team, I mean, that gives you flashbacks and PSTD for the Trinidad and Tobago game, just the performance he had last night. Simone was terrible in the back too, and these are two guys that are experienced center backs. You've seen them in the past have success, but no, they did not have an answer for anything the Union threw at them. And the one thing I've been talking about on the podcast is the Union have to get better service into the strikers, and they did just that to Sergio Santos. And I know Casper didn't get on the goal sheet, but he did have 2 assists on the night. Had a great pass to Jamir, great dummy, like you said, by Brenden Aaronson. Had a great header back down into Mark McKenzie. 11 of the last 27 goals scored have been from Union homegrown players, and it's so good to see the Union Academy players just come and produce for this team, be a part of the academy at a young age. They finally get a chance to play for the first team, and they're not missing their chance. They are taking it with everything they have.
Yeah, I mean, it really seems like the plan's just coming to fruition. Everyone's so focused. I know we were talking about like Kai earlier and like Montero potentially. we're also focused on some of the homegrowns, but like there's also these other young players that are imports that could potentially be flipped in the future as well. And I realize we don't want to like give away all the talent, right? As long as we have a reasonable and suitable backfill in place, right? So if we sell McKenzie, you got to imagine Glessness, Elliott pairing just steps in and we don't miss much of a beat, right? Maybe you take a small hit in the short term, but like if Kai has a sale option and you flip him where you got him for virtually nothing, and I think most fans are fairly comfortable with Matt Real. Again, maybe a small term decrease in quality, but I think it's all just sort of balances, right? If we get enough return for these players and end up just getting that churn, and then we have a little bit more to spend for next time, and the level just gradually keeps increasing. So, it just seems like, I don't know. I mean, for me, I was always critical about lack of spending, but it really seems like Ernst specifically has just activated the idea that's been pitched to us time and time again and not really had all the components to come to fruition. Now it seems like it's all starting to have that aha moment where it's like, okay, this may make a lot of sense. And if Sugarman's going to be your primary owner, this is the only viable way you do it, as long as he's the primary owner. So I think we got to just keep hoping that, they can put competitive teams together like this, sell a player, immediately backfill him. Like if Aaronson's gone, at least in the interim, Fontana works to step in, and you can sort of see the plan coming together. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, it definitely is exciting. And you brought up a good point earlier where you said the cohesion between this team. Like we all know there's no superstar in this team, and yeah, last year you can call Marco Fabian a superstar, but comparing him to the real superstars in the league, Marco Fabian doesn't compare to those guys. And yeah, like everybody wants that big signing. I know everybody says Mario Balotelli. They want that DP striker that's going to get you 20-plus goals a season. But at the same time, like you said, the way that the Union are doing things, coming through the academy, buying gems in Europe that Ernst Tanner seems to have a hit on every single time, and then they add on more and more money. That means, instead of paying $2 million for a Jamir Montero, you could spend $4 million for a player even better quality than Jamir Montero. Again, maybe not playing the kind of money for a Zlatan or for a Carlos Vela, but at least it's going to be a better player than Jamir Montero or something like that. Or at least on paper, it looks like it should be. And everybody knows, there are fans, like I said last week or 2 weeks ago, people see, $6 million for Brenden Aaronson. All that money is going to be spent for transfers. No, it's going to offset the losses that the Union took this year. It's going to go back into the academy because Ernst Tanner said, even in that Brenden Aaronson press conference, he says, yeah, we've spent millions upon millions of dollars for this academy. And we want to see it pay off. We want these sales to fund the academy where, these guys, these millionaires aren't losing that money where, yes, we want to buy better players and everything with the amount of money that we spend, but we also want to see the academy be profitable. And so, yeah, these people, I feel like once we sell Mark McKenzie, they're going to be upset that it's only been for $4 to $4.5 million, or maybe Ernst surprises us and gets even more money. And, people are going to be like, oh yeah, now we have $10 million to spend. Now we can definitely get that number 10 striker we've always wanted. And it's just not going to happen. Like you said, we're invest that money slowly but surely, but it's not going to be for one huge superstar. And I'm okay with that if we can keep having success finding these gems in Europe where it's players none of us have heard about, like Kai Wagner, like Jamiro. If they continue to impress, they'll get flipped for more money than what we bought them for. You keep flipping an academy player every year, and it's all going to pay off in the end. We don't need to be spending like the Atlantas, the LAFCs, the LA Galaxies, because look at the Galaxy now. They bring in Chicharito, and there's all this talk that, he might get loaned out to Chivas. He's having just as bad of a season as Steven Gerrard did when he came over to LA Galaxy. And you see people give Gonzalo Higuain stick down in Inter Miami where they're like, he thought this would just be an easy league and retirement league, but it's anything but that. Like the travel schedule, I feel like so many players that come from Europe don't understand how demanding that is on the bodies, just flying from one side of the country to the other. And now I know with COVID going on and everything, it's a little bit easier, but it's not like in Europe where these towns are right next door and everything. They can hop on the train, hop on the coach. No, you're flying cross country some of the time to go to these stadiums where you're packed tight on a plane and everything. And then you're flying right back. And the league is definitely physical too. Like we give the refs a lot of hate for some of the calls they miss and everything. And you're like, yeah, how's that not a foul? And you're like, he nearly took the guy's leg off and everything. So yeah, it's like we're not going to make these huge European signings, and I'm fine with that. As long as the model that we have going for us right now continues to be successful, I'm fine with it.
Yeah, like you said it, like, right, if we had $2 million last year to buy Montero, and then maybe we just get slow incremental growth, and hey, maybe one day we do eventually build up there, right? Last year was $2 million, maybe next year's $4 million, maybe the year after that we're up to $6 million, and then you see how it starts to stack over time, right? As we're flipping both homegrowns and the imports, right? Maybe we get a $4 million striker a la Firmino, which was around the price he was purchased for when Ernst got in, and then he flips him for, 20 million.
Yeah, definitely.
Or however much he ended up selling them for, right? So you can sort of see the vision of how, maybe our baseline starts pretty low at 2 million, but as time goes on, maybe we're up to like a 6 or 7 million budget in a couple years, right? So I don't know. That's my hope. Maybe it's optimistic, but that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it's going in that direction. I mean, the one thing that scares me is, like I said last episode, is Ernst Tanner. Teams are looking at him like, man, look what he's doing for a team that does not spend money in MLS, and he's made them from a team to the best team in MLS when they're not even spending money. And yeah, I'm sure, like I said last week, that Ernst probably had the option to stay in Europe, go someplace else, but he was intrigued by an owner not spending money, intrigued by MLS. And yeah, I mean, he's done a fabulous job so far with the Union, and hopefully he's here for years to come, because what he's building and what the future looks like is unbelievable. And not only that, but you hear the talks that Jack McGlynn, Nate Harriel, Paxton Aaronson, they're better than the homegrowns we have right now. And if that's the case, I mean, yeah, this team's in good hands. And now you see the Union signing players from, I think they made an academy signing from San Diego the other day. You're seeing them go all over the country for these kids to come into their academy. They have the best, if not one of the best academies in all MLS, when they can just fly around the country and say, hey, look, you're really, 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 really good. The academies in California, the academies in Nevada don't compare to what we have here in Philadelphia. And for those players to see the success and the opportunities given to the first team players right now that came through the academy, that's only going to want players to want to play for the academy even more. And not only are we getting the best players in the Philadelphia area, but like I said, you're just going all over the country to get the best players. And man, I'm excited for that, if that can pay off for us in the future.
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting. And the fact that our homegrown players aren't necessarily from home anymore, I mean, that's really a feather in their cap that they can attract these kids from all over. It's really impressive. And, I know people love the local angle, but you know what? If these are players that are coming to us because we are the best that they have available, we got to capitalize on that, and it seems like we are. So it's great news. They just got to eliminate the homegrown territories next.
Yeah.
And then we'll really be cooking.
Yeah, one small step at a time. You still got a lot of people like, we need promotion, relegation in MLS and everything. And that shit for myself's been long sailed. And I'm sure we can have a whole episode on promotion, relegation here in America and everything. I don't feel like going down that rabbit hole, even though I just brought it up. But like I said, just one small step at a time. So I do want to go ahead. There is nothing, like you said, for us to complain about for this game from the Union against Toronto. We hit on a lot of good points, and hopefully we can see this against Chicago. But I do want to go ahead and give Blunder of the Week. So you were talking about how fans think that, sometimes they're better than themselves. Sometimes we're our own worst enemy. So last night at the game, I got to think how I want to say this in case somebody listens. So last night at the game, if people missed it, the Sons of Ben, they did a TIFO, Brenden Aaronson. I think it said $6 million man or something like that. And then it was a portrait of Brenden Aaronson. And this one fan, he was like, oh, why are we doing this? They're acting like this guy's dead. And why are we celebrating him like this? And I'm like, can't you not be happy? Like, this is the most money that we've ever made from a transfer. A guy that's from New Jersey who's not far away from Philadelphia at all. This young guy we've seen come through the academy. Like, you're angry that we're celebrating him for getting a move to Europe at such a young age. I'm like, oh man, like why as a team can we not be happy? So that guy complaining about the Brenden Aaronson TIFO, he is going to get my blunder of the week this week. And, you know, there were a couple other options. I don't know if you saw this, but Sean Johnson, like, suplex Lewis Bank, I think it is, or Bank, one of them, for Montreal after Montreal scored a goal. I was like, oh, man, like, why? Like, you guys are winning, and who knows what happened? I don't know if Lewis was giving it to him all game or something like that, but to see Sean Johnson pick him up and just throw him to the ground, I'm like, oh man, that is poor and everything. But yeah, our own fans complaining about our TIFO, that is getting my blunder of the week.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Johnson did his best, but I guess he comes up short this week.
He does come up short. I'm just like, I don't understand. It's like you should be happy. Like, yeah, I get it. I mean, I guess like. I guess I can see, like, oh, it seems like he's dead and that we're celebrating him, but it's like, it's all fun and everything. It's like, don't be so hurt over it. Like, we're paying our respects to Brenden. Like, but this guy was just not having it at all. And I was like, oh, God. And he was miserable for the whole game. So, but yeah, that's my blunder of the week. Sorry, Sean Johnson. You came up just a tad short this week. But Mike, had a blast having you onto the podcast. And can you go ahead and remind everybody where to find you on social media?
Mostly Twitter. I'm sort of a crazy person, so watch out if you want to follow. But Thomas19064 on Twitter. Give me a follow and try to go a week without muting me, I guess.
It's not that bad. It's not that bad. I mean, if you're into graphs, I mean, Mike's your guy here. He'll give you 1-2 graphs a week. Like he said on here on the podcast, he'll go in transfer market, see how much players are getting sold for at these clubs and everything, how much they're paying for young players. So, yeah, you never know what Mike will throw up on Twitter. And like I said, you know, whatever the hot topic is that day, if a lot of people have the same opinion, doesn't mean Mike's going to have the same opinion. He doesn't hold back, and that's what I appreciate about you, Mike. And for all you guys that aren't following the podcast on social media, follow at Free Kick Pod on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Check out the website, thefreekickpodcast.com. Wherever you get your podcasts, The Free Kick, Todd Lewis. And yeah, this was a blast having you on, and hopefully, you know, we can talk about a game again in the future, but definitely, hopefully you come back for round 2, season 2 for our trivia podcast.
Oh, that would be great. I love jumping on this with you, Todd. It's always a great time.
Absolutely, man. But until next time, which will be against Chicago, my name is Todd, and this is the Free Kick Podcast.